Welcome again to It Doesn't Take a Genius, conversation with introspective perspectives and pithy points of view. Here are your hosts, my friends, Max and Marty.
I think that's Mark and Mike.
Yeah, whatever.
Ramsey! And now for something completely different.
So true. Marshall, welcome to our library session. I've got a copy of the complete novels of Jane Austen in my hand. And we're going to read just a page of this book from 1813. Kind of a romance novel, but that's really selling it short. And then we're going to talk about it, and we're going to make the connection to the workplace. So let me give the setup. This is from chapter 10, so it's pretty early in the book. The characters are just getting to know each other. We have Charles Bingley, Mr. Bingley, and he's playing cards with another gentleman. We have Mr. Darcy, who's the love interest, we'll find out. And he's writing a letter to his sister. And he has a really annoying woman next to him, which is Caroline Bingley, which is Mr. Bingley's sister. So Caroline, the sister, is sitting there sort of fawning over Mr. Darcy and trying to get his attention and annoying him. And then there's Elizabeth, who we'll find is the heroine of the story. She's over to the side doing needlework, observing all of this and taking it all in. So I'll pick it up where Caroline is yet again interrupting Mr. Darcy, and we'll just see where this goes. So without further ado, Jane Austen. But do you always write such charming long letters to her, Mr. Darcy? They are generally long, but whether always charming, it is not for me to determine. It is a rule with me that a person who can write a long letter with ease cannot write ill. That will not do for a compliment to Darcy, Caroline, cried her brother, because he does not write with ease. He studies too much for 4 words of 4 syllables. Do not you, Darcy? My style of writing is very different from yours. Oh, cried Miss Bingley, Charles writes in the most careless way imaginable. He leaves out half his words and blots the rest. My ideas flow so rapidly that I have not time to express them, by which means my letters sometimes convey no ideas at all to my correspondents. Your humility, Mr. Bingley, said Elizabeth, must disarm reproof. Nothing is more deceitful, said Darcy, than the appearance of humility. It is often only carelessness of opinion, and sometimes an indirect boast. And which of the two do you call my little recent piece of modesty? The indirect boast. For you are really proud of your defects in writing, because you consider them as proceeding from a rapidity of thought and carelessness of execution, which, if not estimable, you think at least highly interesting. The power of doing anything with quickness is always much prized by the possessor, and often without any attention to the imperfection of the performance.
Wow.
Somehow that's a podcast episode.
Yes, I am excited about the first question you're going to ask me.
Whatever that question happens to be.
Yes, and keep in mind that I have not heard that passage before, nor have I heard the question, nor have we ever met for this episode.
That's pretty close to the case. Well, so we have these Bingley siblings, right? So we have Charles Bingley and we have Caroline Bingley, and they're talking back and forth about the writing style of Mr. Darcy. So we get a few, if you can pull it up, Mike, it might help just to have this in front of you as we go through this. We're just going to ask some basic questions to make sure we get the sort of what the passage is saying before we move on to talking about what it means or anything like that. But we get a couple clues to what Mr. Darcy's writing style is like. So we get something from Caroline, and then we get something from her brother that tell us a little bit about Mr. Darcy's writing style. How would you describe his writing style according to the passage?
So Charles writes in the most careless way imaginable, leaving out half his words and blots the rest. So yeah, I'm picturing this stream of consciousness kind of, and you've talked to people like that. Yeah, they're talking, right. and you're going, all right, you're leaving out parts of the story. You're jumping around. It's not a well thought out argument, case, story, whatever it might be.
And before we jump all the way there, let me ask you to contrast that with Mr. Darcy. So we have this gentleman writing the letter, and we get a few little clues as to his writing style. What do you catch there?
Well, he takes great pride in his carefulness. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. The letters are shorter, more direct, and more well thought out.
Yeah, and to be honest, it literally says longer letters, right? Because the first little bit is Caroline just wondering, like, wow, you're writing so much. And frankly, her brother kind of adds to that, because he says that they are so thought out that he he studies too much for words of 4 syllables. So he's in some ways making this a longer, more complicated letter.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, compare that, you may or may not like that style, but compare that to, Charles and his style. It's, as you said, it's not thought out. It's faster. He leaves out some words.
Well, you might even think of Mr. Darcy as kind of an academic writing style, where they find words that are unnecessarily complex and sprinkle them around. Just to prove how smart I am. Yeah.
And he's writing to his sister, so this is a family letter. I guess you could make the argument that it's a little bit of spicing the letter up, making it fun for his sister, making it an enjoyable read for his sister. It's not a business letter.
No, it's not. It's not to an academic colleague. It's not to a fellow business person. And so all I'm picturing is, in this day and age, right, in the 1800s, I get this letter and I don't have Google. Right? I'm stuck on this word. I don't know what this word means, and I can't Google it. I'm stuck now. Yeah, he may have insulted me. I don't know. But yeah, or it may have been the greatest compliment of my life. Yeah. I don't know.
And you may have caught the fact that this novel is named Pride and Prejudice. So there is a little bit of that certainly in this book as you go through the story. It's almost a comedy romance about, sort of people of not different classes necessarily, but different levels of good breeding. And Mr. Darcy's of the best breeding, and he's very got some pride in that. So meanwhile, we get, let me read the passage again. Charles Bingley, the brother, when he's accused of, being so careless with his words and his letters, he says, "My ideas flow so rapidly that I have not time to express them, by which means my letters sometimes convey no ideas at all to my correspondents." So he's admitting to something there, and that there's a consequence of that. Sometimes my letters do not make sense to the people reading them. And it's because, I just have my thoughts come so fast. My thoughts come so fast. My ideas flow so rapidly. Elizabeth declares this humility. She's listening into this conversation and she says, "Oh, it's your humility here. It's, anybody who would reprove you of being so careless with your words, you've been very humble here." Why does she see that as humility, what he's said, do you think?
I really don't know when I listen to it, right? Because all I'm thinking is that this man is selfish, right? He's self-centered. He has, there may be some humility in there, but all I heard was braggadociousness. I am such an amazing thinker that I can't be bothered to put my thoughts on paper for the mere peasants who might read my writings to even understand. And so all I'm thinking is, there is zero humility here. It's just, I'm so awesome that I can't be bothered to write it all down.
This is where this gets really fun for me, because, we're talking about two different letter writers, right? We've got Mr. Darcy, the man of good breeding, who's writing this long letter. He studies and gets 4-syllable words, and he's got all this careful, thought out thinking that he puts down on paper. And then we've got his friend, Mr. Bingley, who just, he says the thoughts come so rapidly that I sometimes it just doesn't even make sense what I write to people. And Elizabeth says that that guy is the one who has humility. So in her mind, that's where humility is. When I put the contrast like that, I guess the only thing we can say for Mr. Bingley and his fast writing style is that he admits that it doesn't make sense. Like that, there's the humility.
Right. That, yeah. And I guess you could call that humility. Again, I'll go back to it's selfish and and it lacks empathy for the recipient of the letter. Because I think there's a third style here, right? There, so you've got this passage that's rambling and all over the place, and then you've got this one that's sprinkled with long words and maybe a little too verbose. But that spot in the middle where I write my thoughts in a clear and simple manner that is easily understandable. I think that's where the sweet spot would be between both of these personality types.
So Mr. Darcy is going to not necessarily get a lesson in his writing style, but he's definitely going to be getting some, he's going to be hit across the face a few times by the fact that he might be a little too proud. Meanwhile, he has this insight about the style that his friend Charles Bingley uses, which, he says it's just the appearance of humility that his friend is sharing. When he says, "Oh, people can't understand me. My thoughts come so rapidly." He says it's just the appearance of humility. What would you say to that? Why do you think that, Bingley's saying, "Oh, my thoughts just come so fast. That's the problem." Why is that only the appearance of humility and not actually humility?
Well, I think he's trying to double down on the thought that because people can't understand my writings, I'm that much superior. I just, it's so far beyond the mere mortal to understand this that, I just admit that is the case. And I don't declare that, that to the reader. I just make it so that is the case. That's what they experience.
And I think that, the phrase Darcy uses is that, you're boasting, you're proud of your defects. You're saying, it's not a bug, it's a feature. I'm just that good. The fact that you can't understand my writing, it means I'm really that smart and that fast with my thinking.
And I really don't like this guy. If somebody, because we meet these people in life, the person who comes up to you and they do something that annoys the team or annoys other people, and then they just go, "Well, that's just who I am."
Right.
I'm late for every meeting. That's just who I am.
Mike, I knew you were going to use that example.
I never turn my work in on time. That's just who I am. I don't pay any attention to the detail. That's just who I am. I hate that guy. Like, no, if
I tell it like it is.
That's
just who I am.
I'm blunt, and if people can't take it, it's like if it's not working, stop doing it. If it's working and you're CEO of $1 billion company, great. But if it's not working, if it's hindering the performance of the people around you and causing people to think, maybe you're not the guy, then you need to stop it. So I may not be seeing this clearly because I truly don't like this character.
Well, and so you've leapt to, where I ultimately think we're headed with this, which is, what are the circumstances that lead us to, boast in our defects? What are those things that cause us to say, well, it's actually pretty impressive that you can't understand me, because it means that, I'm thinking that rapidly, or, I can understand you got ticked off. It's because I'm such a truth teller, all these examples you gave, being late to meetings and so on and so forth. I'm just really busy, I'm that important. We could go on and on. There are some circumstances that I think lead people to say, this is a feature, not a bug, to boast about those things that are causing problems. And I'm not sure what they are, but I feel like there are some circumstances that cause us to sort of go down that road. Do you have thoughts about that?
Well, to me, it's deflection. It's, I really don't want to address this. This is too painful for me to address. Maybe I don't even believe I can change it. So
Yep.
therefore, I'm going to deflect. I'm going to call it a positive, and I'm going to move on and hope you don't call me on it.
Yeah. Yeah. And usually we don't.
No,
because it
no,
goes
no.
on.
Yeah, it aggravates us. We put up with it, and we try to work around it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so let me throw one more quote just to sort of wrap up our discussion. This is a quote from C.S. Lewis about how he defines humility. So we've got a couple perspectives on humility here. One is that it's not really humble. It's a false humility. C.S. Lewis says that true humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. I'll read that again. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. How might that perspective help the person who is unapologetically engaging in bad behavior that they say is, just part of who they are, and it's actually a good thing?
Well, I think you're either in one of two places. You're either thinking about yourself or you're thinking about others. And so the expansion of that quote could be, if I'm spending less time thinking about myself, the likelihood that I'm putting myself in the other person's shoes and demonstrating empathy, trying to figure out, how do I affect them, right? What is my impact of my behaviors on them? And is that impact positive? And if not, I need to change that. So just the act of not thinking of me forces me to look outward.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And you can see how with writing, this passage happens to be about writing. Mm-hmm. And, how many times do you get this, vague, brief text message from, a manager who's, trying to give some direction, but it's not direction. Nobody knows what you're talking about. So it meant something to you, but it didn't mean anything to the people that you were trying to impact and theoretically help. So if you really cared about other people, you might slow down and address this problem that you realize you have, where you're too busy and aren't making sense when you communicate to people. That would be a real growth opportunity.
Oh yeah, and it may involve utilizing a different communication technique. Maybe for the message I'm communicating, the text message is not the ideal communication form here.
Yep.
Maybe a voice, an actual phone call, voice to voice, synchronous voice to voice call, or maybe an in-person get together is what's needed here in order to truly communicate what it is that I'm thinking, feeling, or desire.
Yeah, it's become an expression during the pandemic. Could have been an email, and then our whole life apparently could have been an email. I think so many people feel that way because we're so terrible at meetings and communication in general. I wouldn't want to just leave it to an email if there was something really important that we needed to discuss. I'd want there to be two-way communication. I'd want to make sure the other people in the room felt like I had understood what they were saying so that we could move forward on a decision. So, but I'd have to slow down to do that, wouldn't I? I'd have to actually think through and make that a thoughtful communication.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I might have to schedule that conversation, make sure that we've got time set aside, pick a location where we could actually be uninterrupted for a bit, set the phones aside. Yeah, there's all sorts of things that would go into making this a quality conversation where whatever it is that I wanted to express was clearly expressed and received in the manner that I hoped it was received.
Yeah. Well said. Well, we could go on and on about this little passage because I think there's just that much there, but I just wanted everybody to read a page of Pride and Prejudice and see that there might be workplace value there. So that's what we have done.
Awesome. How many more pages do I have to go?
I know of at least one other in Pride and Prejudice, and it's literally the very next page where I said, well, that's an episode. So okay. I guess we should probably talk about this, shouldn't we? Like why the heck we're doing this?
Yeah, because I really thought, when we were brainstorming this idea, and you expressed so eloquently and inspirationally the why behind this particular type of podcast. So I'll let you explain it. I was truly impressed.
Well, it probably won't be eloquent now that you've said that because of Murphy's Law. Let me just say this. I think that what I keep hearing my clients say, and I keep seeing in the professional world, in the work world, in the business world, is this real desire for human beings to show up at work, for people to show up who are treating other people like human beings, are being empathetic with them, are listening to them, are communicating with them, are thinking critically. You know, we don't want robots. We don't just want transactions. We want an actual human being to human being experience to happen. That's every workplace out there. That's every manager to employee out there. You know, I'll have people say things like, you know, I just wish my employees would think before they do something. Or you'll hear employees say, you know, that manager treats us all like numbers instead of names. Those are real opportunities for us to grow in how we treat each other like human beings. And, you know, hip socket my business, that's our tagline, is wrestle and grow. You know, I want people to grow in, you know, all sorts of ways, but certainly one of the big ones would be to grow as a human being. And there happens to be an entire Western tradition that we can wrestle with to help us get there. You know, we've become very good at being a high-tech world that's very transactional. It's very surface. We get lots of things done. We're very quick, much like Mr. Bingley. We're very quick and busy and doing lots of things. But man, if we could slow down and wrestle with some things that help us grow in our understanding of ourselves and of human nature, we would be so much better in the workplace, let alone in our personal lives. And so that's what I want to attempt to do. I think businesses need book clubs. I think workplaces need some way to have conversations like this that are not surface, not easy. They require a wrestle, but man, it's a whole level of growth that we don't currently really pursue in the workplace.
Oh, definitely. And well said. And I would say that what the viewer just witnessed was wrestling, where we were taking totally. This idea, kind of tearing it apart. I thought of stuff that you had never thought of.
100%.
Perspectives of it. I can tell by your face. You're like, how do you take that away from that? so, and that's perfect, right? Gives you insight into me, gives me insight into you. We suddenly are talking about, you know, weighty, important things. And yeah, we talk about this with our managers all the time. They're always like, I don't need to coach my people. I talk to them all the time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you're talking to them mostly about tactical things, right? We're talking about, you know, that last report, that last customer, what are we going to do with that, you know? But these deeper conversations that truly help us grow and learn and understand each other a little bit better, we seldom have those conversations. So this is a neat way to start that process.
Yeah, and I guess what I would just say is that we're going to have a handout version of this little excerpt with some suggested discussion questions, some of which we covered here. Newsflash. I asked some of these questions and I didn't get the answer I expected out of Mike. And that's what will happen when you do this with coworkers or a group of volunteers or whatever. We're going to try to start sending stuff like this out through the podcast that could be of benefit. And Mike, you even thought of a clever name for this whole series, possibly even a YouTube channel. Please share. Just, do you remember this? I thought it was great.
Yes, the episodes will be called Guys with Outlooks with Books. The whole key is the spacing between out and books.
How you choose to write that down might look a little different.
Everything. Yeah. So yeah, a very inaugural episode of Guys with Outlooks with Books.
So download the worksheet, use it with your workplace, little informal book club. Might make an interesting sales meeting if you're brave enough. Maybe it's a couple folks. You can use it with yourself too, and I've given space for you to write down some answers, but We hope this helps, as always, and that's what It Doesn't Take a Genius is about, because it sure didn't take a genius for the two of us to talk about a passage of ancient literature that, PhDs out there write, entire books about. So here we are.
Oh, yeah. No, if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Ditto.
Yeah, it doesn't take a genius. All right, good stuff, my man. Good stuff.
And there you have it, another session of contemporaneous extemporizing from Mark and Mike. I know it's redundant, but consider what we're talking about. As always, feel free to share the ideas you heard here. No rights are reserved, no permissions needed. Thanks. See you next time on It Doesn't Take a Genius.